Imagine a protest so powerful that it brings a huge corporation and even a state government to the negotiating table. Now imagine that protest was led entirely by women. No political parties, no union banners, their only weapon, their sheer will to stand their ground. Today, we are diving into the absolutely incredible story of the Nilpu Samaram, the stand-up strike. So first things first, what does Nilpu Samaram even mean? Well, it literally translates from Malayalam to the stand-up strike, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a form of nonviolent protest where people just stand, day after day, making their presence and their demands completely impossible to ignore. It's a quiet form of resistance, but believe me, it is incredibly powerful. And that really brings us to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? What could possibly drive thousands of women, all plantation workers, to stand for 9 days in a row right in the middle of a town? Well, the answer isn't simple, and it's rooted in a very, very long history of struggle. Okay, so let's set the scene. It's 2015 in the beautiful hills of Munnar, Kerala, and something truly extraordinary is happening. This wasn't your typical strike, organized by some big established union. No, this was something totally different, something that grew right from the ground up. And what made this protest so unique? Well, for starters, it was totally spontaneous. It was organized from start to finish by the women workers themselves. In fact, they specifically told the traditional male-dominated unions and political parties to stay away because they felt like those groups had failed them for years. Their method was peaceful, and their cause, well, it just completely captured the hearts of the public. But to really, truly get why they stood, we've got to go back in time. A protest this intense doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It was the boiling point after literally centuries of exploitation. This timeline gives you a pretty good snapshot. Way back in the feudal era, you had a rigid caste system where upper caste landlords owned everything, and lower castes had basically no rights. Then the British came and set up these massive tea plantations, often using marginalized migrant labor. And here's the thing, even after independence, those deep, deep inequalities in the plantation sector, they never really went away. And here is the absolute crucial point. For the women working on these plantations, it was like a double-edged sword. As workers, they were dealing with horrible hours and ridiculously low pay. But as women, they faced this whole other layer of oppression. They earned less than the men, they were completely shut out of union leadership, and they had to deal with both gender and caste discrimination. It's a classic case of what we call intersectionality, where all these different forms of oppression just stack on top of each other. So when you feel like the system has betrayed you and the people in power have ignored you, who do you have left to rely on? For these women, the answer was simple: each other. And that led to the creation of a powerful new collective. They called themselves Pambilai Oromai, which beautifully translates to Unity of Women. And this wasn't some formal trade union, nope. This was an independent, women-led movement born out of pure necessity. It was a direct challenge to all the patriarchal structures that had been silencing them for so long. Now, every big movement has that one spark, right? The final straw that lights the fuse. For the women of Munnar, it was the decision by the giant Canandaigua Hills Plantation Company to deny them a fair bonus. Get this, the company was making great profits, but the very workers creating that wealth were told they wouldn't get their fair share. And this quote, man, it just gets right to the heart of it. There was this deep, profound sense of betrayal, not just from the company, but from the political parties and the unions who were supposed to be fighting for them. They felt completely and utterly alone, and that's what forced them to unite and take matters into their own hands. So we know why they were angry. But what exactly were they demanding? The bonus was the trigger, sure, but this fight was for something so much bigger. It was about fundamentally changing the conditions they lived and worked in. Okay, let's start with the most basic demand. Just look at this chart. They were earning a mere 230 rupees a day. That's it. They demanded it be raised to 500 rupees. And this wasn't just asking for a little bump. This was a demand for a living wage, something that actually reflected the backbreaking labor they put in every single day. But again, this was never just about the wages, not by a long shot. Yes, they demanded the bonus they were owed, but they also wanted proper housing, healthcare, maternity leave, social security, basic human rights that they had been denied for decades. And critically, they demanded that their own group, Pambilai Oromai, be recognized as a legitimate voice for the workers. So after 9 days of standing firm, with the eyes of the nation on them, something had to give. The pressure was just immense. So, what happened? Did it work?
Well, the outcome was complicated. It was a mix of these amazing victories and some pretty tough, persistent challenges. On the plus side, the state government was forced to step in. The women won a big wage increase, and, maybe just as importantly, Pombalai Oramai got the recognition it deserved. But, on the other hand, the movement later struggled with internal divisions, and political parties tried to swoop in and take credit. And those deep, structural problems, they didn't just vanish overnight.
Still, let's not downplay the immediate victory here. Their daily wage was increased to over 300 rupees. It wasn't the 500 they demanded, but it was a real, tangible improvement in their daily lives, and they won it entirely on their own terms. But the true impact of the stand-up strike goes so far beyond a pay raise. Its real legacy is how it completely changed the conversation around labor, gender, and power, not just in Munnar, but across Kerala. I mean, think about what this protest really did. It proved that grassroots movements, led by the most marginalized people, could be way more powerful than the established party machine. It forced society to look that triple oppression of class, caste, and gender right in the face. And it was just this powerful, visible demonstration of marginalized women taking center stage and reclaiming their political voice. And it's so important to see that the Nilpu Samaram didn't just happen in a vacuum. It really stands on the shoulders of giants. It's part of this long, historical line of social justice movements in Kerala, from anti-caste struggles like the Vaikom Satyagraha to worker uprisings. This was just the latest chapter in a fight for justice that's been going on for over a century. And if you want to boil it all down to a single idea, this quote just absolutely nails it. The fight for more money was critical, of course, but it was really a symbol of a much deeper fight. The fight to be seen, to be heard, and to be treated with basic human dignity. So in the end, the stand-up strike is this incredible example of what academics sometimes call subaltern politics, where groups that have been historically silenced finally find their voice. It's a powerful, real-world example of grassroots democracy in action, proving that real power doesn't always have to come from the top down. And that leaves us with a final, really important question to think about. The women of Munnar showed us their answer. But it makes you wonder, right? In a world where so many of our established institutions seem to be failing the very people they're meant to serve, what does it truly take for those who have been silenced to finally stand up and make themselves heard?